Due to the restrictions, we're both unable to photograph the professionals at the Tour this year. So we thought, in order to get our race fix, Simon would naively sign up to some local crit races, and Tom would be there to capture the sometimes amusing results. Following Simon's brief flirtation with racing, we met with Clay Davies, an experienced local rider, to help us dissect the mediocrity. Here's how he got on.
Is there anything else I need? Is that it?
Rider number 13.
Oh yeah.
On top of all the other disasters. I don't even know which way round the race goes. I presume it goes that way. Or how, in fact, to start the race. What do you do?
Mixed results, is it fair to say?
Well, not that mixed, no, just all rubbish.
So what we thought we would do was get an expert in, who is Clay Davies of
Tifosi.
Very good, very good. Who's done a bit of racing, that's an understatement, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've been racing 5 years now.
Very good. Right, what's your rank, national?
I am, I don't know what my national rank is because I haven't been any because of COVID, but I'm a first cap racer.
He's decent, pretty big deal. And you're Cat 4, which is the entry level you're going at, aren't you? Mm-hmm. I'm not a cat because I don't race. And so we thought it'd be great to get your feedback on Simon's approach to date and then maybe give him some pointers on.
Absolutely,
yeah, fantastic. So what we do with everybody, just when they come on, is ask them a few questions.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, first question, Clay, gel, banana or cake?
Oh, it's got to be a cake, isn't it?
A cake.
So mid-race you'd warp out.
Okay, mid-race, okay, it's got to be a gel, isn't it? It's got to be a gel.
And training ride?
Banana or a cake.
Are you just suddenly remembering the team manager might be watching, so you're just stepping back from the cake now?
Doesn't mind, I just have a cake.
Wax, Veet or jungle?
What are you even asking me?
Legs. You're a road cyclist.
I don't know what, I shave my legs, I'll put it that way. I'm knitting to Veet, I don't like the smell.
Yeah, it's a bad smell, isn't it? Yeah.
We've established last week it burns, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how far up you go, doesn't it, I suppose?
Yeah. We've got Zwift as a training tool, legitimate form of racing, or sofa every time?
I would say Zwift is a training tool, but it's a way of doing training in the winter and not getting bored.
Yeah.
Roads are flooded ice, and it just meant you could do a 4-hour ride, which I did occasionally.
Right.
In my living room with all my windows open.
4 hours on Zwift?
But I did nearly 5 on, I think. 110 miles or something. But
gravel bikes, good thing or just a cynical industry invention?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I mean, the bike industry got to sell bikes, haven't they? But you know, I bought a gravel bike last April, just as the pandemic hit. I rode it quite a lot, turned it into my winter bike. So I think they're here to stay. But at the end of the day, it's just a rigid mountain bike, isn't it, with drop bars?
I've got a feeling we might know the answer to this one. Matching kit or don't give a shit?
It's got to be matching kit. We all know somebody who doesn't wear matching kit, don't we? It looks like they got dressed in the dark.
How about Flanders or Roubaix as a preference?
I think it's got to be Flanders, I think. I've got sort of an affinity for Belgium. I don't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just resonates more with me.
Cafe stop or no cafe stop?
Depending on what my coach says,
because
he does get a bit emotional sometimes. I'll have a cafe stop. Just make sure I pause the
pub stop at the end.
I can't drink.
Wait at the top or carry on to demonstrate your greatness?
Well, given I'm 80 plus kilos, they're usually waiting for me at the top.
Tea or coffee?
Don't like tea, so it has to be coffee.
Lager or ale?
I'll say lager.
Yeah.
Occasionally, maybe a shandy.
Yeah. Fight
sort of, 7/8 lemonade.
Wow.
So how did cycling get under your skin? At which point did it
Yeah, I mean, I started cycling when I was a teenager, just for a bit of a laugh, you know, in the woods. I used to do 6-hour endurance mountain bike races on a rigid single-speed mountain bike. I just kept coming back for more. So I joined the mountain bike team and got an actual proper cross-country mountain bike, and then started doing the Mud, Sweat and Gears Eastern cross-country mountain bike.
You realise you're half decent by this stage?
Well, I guess so. I won the first race I entered.
Right, fine.
But you know, it got to the point where I realised that I am quite a lot bigger than most mountain bikers. And my coach at the time was a former pro road rider. He said, look, I think you're fighting a bit of a losing battle here, why don't you jump on the road bike? My first road race I did was a fourth cat circuit race around Wellingarden City town centre. And it was absolutely sleeting it down with rain. Like, it was freezing cold, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I just attacked from the gun, literally, you know, mountain bike style, and rode straight off the front on my own, and then lapped the field twice.
Wow.
And that was that, really. The problem is when you start from that sort of level, you never quite match it ever again. So then I went to Hog Hill a few weeks later, Redbridge Cycle Centre, and I think I was...
Got a big hill in it, isn't it?
Yeah, clinging on for 10th place. So it's, it was a bit of a mental readjustment after.
Have you won any races since your glamorous starting road racing?
I've won a few crits.
Yeah.
Bovingdon, I've won out, Milton Keynes, a few road races. Regional road races I've won. Never won a National B road race, but that's sort of on the agenda.
Good.
Impressive.
Hi there, I'm Kirsty from Spring Pilates, and in our session today we're going to be looking at our glutes. The way that I think about the glutes is a bit like the friend in your group of mates who earns the most money but never buys around, a bit of a freeloader. And that's what our glutes are. They're really big, they're really powerful, and they should take on a lot more work than they tend to. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at stabilising through our hips, engaging our core, and really just focusing on working our glutes. And the more that we can get them to work off the bike, it becomes more natural for them to take their role on the bike, and ultimately improves your power output and improves your position as you cycle. So we're going to be looking at our swimming in standing, which is really good for our glute strength. But before we get into that, I just want to talk through engaging our deep core muscles. So they support our deep spine, and it's really important that we keep them strong because they prevent a lot of injury. To identify if you're activating your deep core, find your hip bones, bring your fingers in 2 centimetres, down 2 centimetres, and find that squishy bit of your tummy there. Feet under hips, nice neutral spine, and as you breathe out, imagine that you're sucking up through your pelvic floor. So we're imagining here that you're getting into cold water, that kind of feeling. If you're a man, think about maybe pulling your testicles up. And if you're a lady, think about if you needed to pass wind in a lift and you're really trying to hold it in. And what you should feel as you activate that is underneath your fingers here, it pulls taut like an elastic band. And that's our deep core. So we're not thinking about these kind of superficial abs up here like Peter Andre. We're thinking about these really deep muscles that support the lower back. The other way to think about it, if that's not working for you, is you're putting on a tight belt, and as you're pulling the belt in tight, think about that pulling in and pulling up. Now when you've found that, we want to hold that at about 30 to 50% all the time. So let's go into the exercise. So we've got our neutral spine here, we've got our core activated, our feet are under our hips, we're going to bend the knees. And then from our hips, we're going to hinge forward into this position. So a similar position to what you would be in on the bike. Thinking here, not to tip the pelvis up like this and not to tuck it too far under. We want to keep it kind of neutral. As we breathe out, we engage the core, bring the weight onto one foot, and we're going to stretch the other foot out behind us. You can bring your hands to your hips here, and you need to be strict with yourself that your hip bones don't move. They're headlights, imagine that, and they're facing the floor, and you don't want them to move. From this position, we're going to lift and lower the leg without any movement happening in the back. Now this is really nice and easy, but terrible for my lower back, and I'm not working my glute. So we keep this all completely still, and it's just the leg that lifts and lowers. This leg's working hard to stabilise, so we've got the quad and the front of this leg working super hard. Our core is engaged, helping us balance, our hips are level, and it's just this back leg lifting. Really squeeze your bottom as you do it, and you'll start to feel this activity through the glute and through a little bit through the hamstring. Keep going with this for about 30 seconds. and then have a rest, come back up, and we go on the other side. If that's feeling pretty comfortable for you, we can add in the arms, and this really helps us now with some endurance and stability through our shoulders. Time, lift the arms. From here, as we lift the leg, squeezing the glute, we're going to lift the other arm as well. So what we've got now is we're working across the diagonal, across our back, working our shoulder on one side and this glute on the other, with our supporting leg working hard to stabilise us and our core keeping everything nice and firm in the trunk. Again, you can go for that for 30 seconds on each side, little rest in between, and by the end of that you should really feel like your glutes are on fire.
Go on, Simon, come on!
Is that when you solo off the front?
That's solo
Definitely
off the
solo
back.
off the front there. No, don't tell people that.
Right in the mix there. Crying my way up the little
There
hill.
you go.
The idea was, during the lockdown, you know, you're doing a lot of Zwifting, riding, going out for your hour, out and about, and just sort of missed the competition element really, and just wanted to put myself out of my own comfort zone a bit. And so I just, when the entries came up, I just thought I'm signing up for a load of them and see what happens.
I think a lot of people did the same.
Yeah, a lot of people did the same, yeah. And yeah, we're up to 3 now. I've done, you know them very well, I've done Hillingdon twice and the Bovingdon Bomber once. And
How did it go?
the first Hillingdon, I finished in the bunch, which I was reasonably chuffed with, but I noticed that there was a real noticeable difference in the pace of it from the couple of years before that I'd done it. Either I'd got older and weaker, or it had got quicker, and I think it was the fact that it had got quicker.
Yeah.
And Tom, you came to watch.
I feel like we've glossed over a few details from the outset. I mean, there's aspects of the preparation that you want to nail, aren't there, before you race? So I thought I'll come and film this for the channel. We'll get this down. And first thing we're filming is registration. Mr. Gill. No record of you entering this phase. It's full up. So how could Simon have tackled that one, Dave? What do you feel he could have done better there?
Well, I don't quite understand that happened. Actually, pre-entry might have helped.
Yeah, I had entered, but not that race. I'd entered the one 3 weeks later, but turned up to this one. Got my dates mixed up somehow.
You're prepared, aren't you, I suppose?
I was really prepared, but they weren't prepared for me, was the problem. Obviously there was a few no-shows, and I was in. So no warm-up really, was there, Tom?
I think 2 minutes before it's due to start, you sort of pebbled up to me from the registration kiosk. Where's the start line? I don't know.
The same place it was 3 years ago, probably.
Which way round the track are we going? I don't know. I'm not racing.
It's supposed to be my bloody coach.
That's a good start. So how would you reckon your race? Did you go on YouTube perhaps before, or ask a few friends on how they done it?
Yes, I mean, Strava's a fantastic tool because you know pretty much every race circuit now, you know, hundreds if not thousands of people are in many laps. So you can just look at the segment.
And what could that sort of tell you?
It's going to give you an idea of obviously what it looks like.
Yeah.
You can get elevation off it.
Corners, elevation.
Corners.
Yeah.
If you really want to depress yourself, what the fastest lap times are.
Sure.
But you only find that out afterwards, I suppose.
Power outputs on that as well, I suppose?
Yeah, if they've hidden it, yeah.
2 weeks before a race, would you be tapering, or would you be adjusting your diet, or would you? What should someone be doing for that?
Yeah, I mean, so sort of 2 weeks before a race you're not going to fundamentally turn yourself from, you know, an amateur completely to a Van der Poel level in 2 weeks. You know, you are pretty much where you are fitness at that point. You can probably train, you know, probably for a few days up to it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Certainly,
I mean, they're so short, aren't they? You're not going to blow yourself to bits.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for the week up to it, just carry on training as normal.
Yeah.
Maybe take a rest day 2 days beforehand.
Yeah.
And then the day before, do a bit of a pre-race spin.
With a bit of effort.
Yeah, with some efforts in, yeah. So, you know, a couple of sprints.
Yeah.
Nothing too long. Sort of the zone 5 effort if you do power and heart rate. And a sort of a building effort from sort of a tempo up to sort of an FTP.
Okay.
If you do power, that is.
And if you knew it's a 45-minute race, would you be adjusting your training so that you could
Yeah, so if you're
putting in a good output in that
so if you're
time window.
concentrating on 45-minute races, you know that's probably the way that, COVID and everything at the moment. That's probably where we're going to be heading for a while now. I think, they're not going to be much more than an hour, certainly for evening crits. You're not going to want to go and do 5-hour training rides.
No.
For a Premier Calendar road race.
Yeah.
If you're only going to be riding for 45 minutes, it's a completely different sort of zone and effort you're training. Yes, there's a lot of club riders that are really strong. They can ride for hours in zone 2, which is effectively pedalling fairly hard but still being able to have a conversation. Do 100 miles. A lot will struggle with when they first go into a race is the change of pace. So what's going, known as going into zone 5 and then back into zone 1 and then back into zone 4 and then absolutely giving it the beans to close a gap in a race. And that's what you really need to train effectively if you want to get into racing, more particularly crit racing, because it's not just a constant slog.
And I did do a trainer road program for a bit.
Yeah.
That was actually pretty good because it, like you said, it did focus on efforts, different efforts.
The idea effectively is that you're not, you do an effort and then you don't recover, basically.
Yes.
You recover a little bit, but then you've got to go again. And then you recover a little bit and you've got to go again. If you do these efforts and you fully recover and then you carry on and then you do another one, there's not really much point because it's not really in a race scenario. But it does train your body to be able to respond to other people, which effectively what going with a break in a race or sprinting out of a corner is all about.
Hi, I'm Ian from FireCrest, and this week's top tip is stopping. And so once we've got going, we want to be able to stop the bike. Sounds simple, we just pull the brakes, but on a bike, we've got 2 independent brakes. It's working out how to get the most out of that braking, where to brake, and then how we do it. And so coming into a section of trail or coming into a section on the road, just thinking about where we want to apply the brakes and get that brake timing right so that we can slow down to the speed that we want to tackle the next bit of trail or road, and then we can go from there. So coming into a section, what you want to be doing is keeping your head up, looking well ahead so that you can see the section that you're going to need to slow down for coming up. What we look at is speed control. So we have 3 options. We can either brake and slow down, roll and carry the speed we've got, or accelerate and go faster. Here we're looking at braking. So coming into the section, looking at where that braking zone is going to be, and then applying the brakes. And what we talk about is brake balance. And so each section of trail or coming into each section of road, you'll use a slightly different brake balance for that section. But your brain will work that out. It's very clever, it's a supercomputer. It can work out quite quickly how much front and rear brake you need to use. And what you'll find is if you find the balance, then the bike will slow down nice and quickly. Certain conditions mean you might use more front than rear, and other conditions you'll be using more rear than front. And again, some riders find it's easier to balance the bike on the front or rear wheel. There's nothing wrong with being more front than rear, although some people might think that there is. And so coming into that section, getting the brake balance done, you're then ready to hit the section. In an ideal world, we'd be able to brake perfectly in that braking area, but we sometimes miss that and end up braking in the section. Don't worry about that, we just call it comfort braking, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It just makes you feel a little bit more comfortable where you've not slowed the bike down enough to go into that next section. You can work on that by thinking more about the control braking and getting your braking done nice and early before you get into the section.
Right, so eat well in advance.
Yeah, so you want to eat well in advance. They say 3 hours before a crit.
Yeah.
Because you effectively want it to be out your stomach and sort of being
doing what
digested
it's supposed to be doing. Yeah, okay.
By the time you're sort of getting out the saddle and really giving it the beans. A road race, they say 2 hours beforehand. If you're feeling a little bit peckish, 45 minutes, you should in theory have enough energy in your body to sustain that.
Yeah.
But you could just pop a gel on the start line.
Yeah.
If it's an evening.
You did do that.
Yeah.
On the start line? And would you
just
take
in
one
the
with
van,
you?
just in the van before.
Yeah.
And would you ever take one with you, or some people take them with them on the race?
Yeah, it's a 40,
that short?
for an hour or 45-minute race. I mean, if you took one in the first 15 minutes, it might start taking effect
I was
by the
going to
end.
say, you do see, particularly in the 4th cat on the last lap, someone doing that.
And if he's doing 2 races back to back, so he did one on a Tuesday, one on a Wednesday, on the way back from that race, what would you suggest he ate just to make sure he recovered well and refueled well for the next one?
Oh, here we go.
You went to McDonald's around the corner, didn't you?
Post-race nutrition in. Burgers, chips, pint of milkshake.
It just popped up on the mat. We were hungry. I felt bad for you. I wanted to treat you.
Yeah, so look, you know, it's best to eat something fairly soon afterwards, especially if you haven't eaten anything beforehand.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to try and eat clean eating ideally. You know, a milkshake or a protein shake fairly soon afterwards.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, we did that strawberry milkshake.
Yeah,
You know,
AstraZeneca jab 4 days before, McDonald's evening afterwards. I mean, it was perfect preparation.
Yeah, bit of a sore arm, it's fine, isn't it?
Strangely, the second one on the Wednesday didn't go so well, didn't they?
Oh dear, no. I don't think the Bovingdon Bomber, as you can probably tell from my kind of skeleton frame, is I'm not that suited. I don't think I'm suited to that. Would you say you need to be a bit?
Yeah, you need to be a punchy rider for Bovingdon, yeah.
Glad. Well, there we go. At least I feel a bit better about it.
So on a race like this, so will you pick a heart rate zone and go, right, that's what I'm staying in, or will you pick a power zone and go, I'm staying in that? You're just racing?
Forget all that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes on my white hill, you can turn it just to duration, so time.
Yeah.
You know, forget power, forget heart rate.
Yeah.
You know, you've just got to do the business at the end of the day. Haven't you?
Yeah.
And what's the expectation? So they're doing, 40 minutes, the bell goes, and then you know you've got 3 laps or something. How does it work? So
I don't even think it was that long, but that's essentially what the format is. You know?
is everyone staying well within themselves and then going like hell once the bell goes, or is the pace just gradually? What you know, if there's people watching who've not done a race before, what can they expect?
Well, you can sort of expect the unexpected. No race is the same. If you do Bovingdon next week, for example, you know, it might be quite, the break might go and it might be quite relaxing in the bunch. You know, it does happen. You know, typically what happens is in a crit, the first 10-15 minutes, everyone's a bit excitable. Yeah. Had too many caffeine gels potentially, and they're jumping all over the place. It's very fast, lots of attacks. And then usually the fatigue starts to set in after about 15-20 minutes.
So it's almost similar to these silly Zwift runs. Not silly, they're not necessarily silly.
Well, it's the same, it's human.
You go hell for leather, hang on, and then it will calm down.
Yeah, it's human physiology, isn't it, essentially? You know, everyone's got a 15-20 minute burst of energy in them, and then everyone goes a bit all cross and get a bit tired. And that's effectively normally when the people who know what they're doing think, oh, this is probably now time to attack. Yeah. Go solo, get 2 or 3 of us up the road. And then, you know, on the assumption that there's a large group left or everyone's all together sort of 2 or 3 laps to go, you know, that's where people have got to make a decision. If you're a sprinter, you might just sort of hide and sort of hope it comes to a bunch sprint at the end. If you're a sort of rider that's got a good couple of minute kick on you, you know, give it the beans for a few minutes, you might do a last lap flyer. Or if you don't have a short shot power effort, but you could just give it everything you got for 2 or 3 laps, you effectively have to attack then at the end.
So having a good awareness of your own attributes it must be quite useful. What would you say you are then? Something, I guess you're good for climb. What are you for the next one?
Deliberately not saying anything.
And on the day, would you have a drink on your bike for something that's 45 minutes long?
If it's hot, yeah.
Half a bottle, quarter of a bottle. Do you want to be dragging around all that mass?
Yeah, I wouldn't have 2. Absolutely, I wouldn't have 2. You know, have one sort of 500ml, 600ml bottle, potentially fill it.
Really? Yeah.
You know, depends how.
I think I had my puncture repair kit on for the first one.
And what about safety? Are there any tips? Anything? I mean, obviously, if you've not done one before, it's probably best just not to get too stuck in.
Fourth cat races have a bit of a reputation, don't they?
That was frightening, I have to say, last Tuesday. They asked how many people it's their first race, and quite a few hands went up. Asked how many people have never ridden at Hillingdon before, quite a few hands went up, and there was probably 60 odd riders. So I thought at that point there's going to be some chopping up going on.
So what did you do just to stay safe?
So I tried to weave my way nearer the front, and that did seem to work because all the crashing was going on behind.
The people at the back, you know, they'll probably get strung out, and then as they come out of a corner, they need to pedal really hard, so it will. The elastic band shrinks again, and then every corner it gets longer again, and the further you are back, the worse that gets. So unless you're really strong and you're hiding at the back, you'll be absolutely knackered. And effectively, that's where the crashes happen, especially on circuits with little rises.
And in terms of bike, are there would you adjust your tyre pressures or the tyre pressure you want for the dry or the wet? How would you?
Yeah, I always let a bit of pressure out in the wet. Not a huge amount, because then you make yourself susceptible to punctures.
So you're more likely to get a puncture with less air in it.
That's the theory I'm led to believe is accurate. Yeah.
But you would increase your traction in the wet if you've got.
Yeah, and it makes the bike a bit less squirrely, I think, around corners.
So in the dry, what would you have your target?
Well, I'm tubeless, so
tubes or tubeless?
Tubeless.
Yeah.
So I don't get too crazy on the pressures. Sort of 80, 90.
Interesting. Yeah. It seems to be all changed, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it's faster, tubeless.
Yeah.
So Clay, what do you think? How important is the bike to your success?
Well, I mean, fourth cat racing, starting out, it's not hugely relevant. It's all about getting into the swing of things, really.
Yeah.
We've already alluded to the fact that some of these races can be a little bit dangerous in terms of accidents and things. Riders typically don't get that badly hurt. It's normally the bike that takes the brunt of it. So, I wouldn't typically go into a fourth cat race with a 10 grand, whatever. Keep it fairly sensible. If you have a bike at the moment and you want to do an upgrade, I think wheels and tyres make a huge difference.
Good.
So don't rush out and buy a new bike. Just if anything gets.
Is this going to end up in half?
Yeah.
Well,
someone's going to ride over.
And the fact you can't get one at the moment because of the bike
There
supply
are no
situation.
bikes on the market.
The sound. The sound. It's not.
Carbon on tarmac.
It's the sound of it's carbon pedals, isn't it? And quick releases rubbing along tarmac. It's quite a you don't hear that sort of sound anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Lee from Otec Bikes, and today's top tip is to do with measuring your chain wear. Ride the bike and keep riding with a worn-out chain. You're also going to damage your cassette. A chain's much cheaper than a cassette, so it's in your best interest to keep an eye on this and monitor the wear. And that's done basically with one of these tools or something very like that. The way you use them is really quite straightforward. This is a shop tool, this is what we would use, and basically this just gives us a greater degree of measurement of the chain, and we pop those in between the chain links, and we can read off here it's at 25%, or the indicator is 25. So a new chain would be 25 to 0.5, 0.25 to 0.5. So this is a brand new chain and it's a brand new bike, so that's what I would expect. So the other type of indicator, essentially drop-in yes-no indicators, which makes them ideal for home use. This is a Shimano one, and it drops in, and if you read the instructions, it basically says if it drops in cleanly with no effort, then you need to replace the chain. Now that's not the case here. I have to push that quite hard, and what it says on the indicator is no new chain required. That makes it very simple, nice easy job for you to do at home. So every time you've washed your bike, cleaned your chain, check the chain wear, keep on top of it, save yourself some money, make your bike ride nicer.
That's me there.
You look very pro.
I think we've grown to know each other well enough over the space of the hour to know now that you're probably taking it.
So you've got a full-time job.
Yeah.
So you, like most of us humble club level riders, you're having to fit your training in around the 9 to 5.
Yeah, so I do in the winter. I train mostly in the mornings because it gets so dark so quickly. Yeah. So I normally go out at the crack of dawn, get my sort of hour training in first thing, and then work for the rest of the day. It's been made a lot easier recently with COVID with working from home. It's typically all in about 14, 15 hours a week.
Training?
Yeah.
Out on the road?
Yeah.
And what sort of distance are you doing a week?
Somewhere between 200 and 300 miles.
Okay, so for comparison, how many hours do you reckon you're doing a week?
Hours.
It's probably not far off that.
No, it is.
No, pretend your wife's never going to see this. How many hours a week do you reckon you're doing on the bike?
It's dropped off a fair bit recently, but I don't know about actual hours.
Distance,
150k.
Right. So a little bit
200 maybe, some weeks. So like if I do the club ride, if I do the local club ride,
yeah,
that's a good 80 straight away, and then a few little coffee runs in the week if I've got time. Yeah.
It's a lot more than most people do.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well, it's really good to meet you, Clay. Thanks for your advice and tips on how I might improve myself slightly. I think there is a couple of little snippets in there which I will use and dominate.
I'll see you next week as well.
Category. Yeah, I look forward to that. Hopefully there's been some drier weather and less
Let's be allowed the old dog. That's what you
That's it, yeah.
less spilling at Spillingdon.